So I'm here with Gil Addos, CEO of Rubicon MD and co-founder. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me, man.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. So I guess the first question is, how do you take your coffee, or do you drink coffee?
I'm not explicitly a coffee drinker. Lately I've been into a lot of chai and chai lattes, so I'll do that, but always flexible.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Tell me a little bit about yourself. What dreams you had, your aspirations.
For sure. So I grew up in Connecticut. Both my parents are immigrants. My mother's on her side of family's from Barbados, on my father's side, Ghana. So kind of grew up with that immigrant type of background and mentality. Always gives you an interesting perspective. And I've always kind of wanted to get involved in business.
Do you have one specific story from your childhood that shows who you are today?
So I was kind of an outgoing kid, so I like to interact, I like to joke, and I also like to find ways and creative ways to make money. In high school, we had a student center, and so there were a whole bunch of kids that couldn't get their snacks and food and whatnot. And so my big plan was we would go and we would start up the student center, and we would just go to Dunkin' Donuts, buy the food there, bring it back, and sell it at a markup. And there were a whole bunch of problems, which include the fact that you weren't allowed to sell stuff without permit, all those things. We got the donuts because those are the cheapest thing you can get at Dunkin' Donuts, and we just sat there in the student center and we sold them at a markup because I saw a demand and I met it and I just enjoyed it. I loved it. I loved figuring out every part of how we got that operation to work. Probably only lasted a week. I loved it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Take me real quick through going to college, graduate school, and where you're at right now.
Yeah, so I was 17 years old when I went to college.
Wow, 17, you graduated high school early?
I graduated high school early, and so I applied to business school, wrote an essay. I was voluntold to defer for a couple years and go work before I went. It turned out to be a blessing in disguise. That kind of left me with a gap of 2 years before going to business school. Interned at a company called Xerox. They were in the midst of a transition there, and I'd met the head of investor relations.
Nice.
This guy was the sharpest dude I'd ever seen. Came into the room, could answer the questions, was razor sharp, looked you dead in the eye, made you feel a little bit uncomfortable, but he just seemed to know how to get business done, and I was just impressed by him. I wanted to come and work for him. So
Did you want to be him?
Yeah, I wanted to be him.
What's his name?
His name's Jim Lesko, actually.
Okay.
When he interviewed me, I came in, told him, this is why I got impressed, this is what I want to do, and he invited me in to work with his team. The experience that got me interested in healthcare and kind of the double bottom line, I had a grandmother in Barbados who developed a brain tumor and traveled up to Boston, which is where a lot of my family came to from Barbados. And she came there for surgery. She went a couple places, but ended up coming there for surgery on the brain tumor. And that took a toll. And as I got older, I got to understand a little bit more about what was going on in that situation. So it's not surprising to anybody but Barbados, the people that can come to the US to get healthcare, they come to the US to get access to the right specialists, to access to really, really good treatments and procedures and things that they don't have in spades the same way. I got that view and I got to understand a little bit more about what that meant. Even me here, I had something I needed to get a dermatologist appointment for, and took 4 or 6 months to get an appointment.
Wow.
And I've got great insurance. There's just a supply-demand issue. I learned from that experience that not everybody has the same access to healthcare, and healthcare isn't created equally everywhere.
Chai latte?
Oh, thank you.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Thanks, man.
You good man?
I'll take another coffee. Sure.
Would have had a little more energy if I started with the coffee.
Maybe talk to me real quick about the problem around Rubicon.
Yeah.
What that is.
We solve for a business model where doctors talk to other doctors. That's what happens in this country. It's the collaborative nature of medicine. As people get further out into the community, further away from the places where they train, you tend to see less of that collaboration because people are out practicing on the front lines. There was a case that I was working on where we got an expert on the phone and we asked him, how do you provide this treatment? It was a treatment for chronic kidney disease. The expert said actually is, people don't get to me till it's stage 3 or stage 4 kidney disease. So, well, you're the expert. It's a rare form of kidney disease called ADPKD, which I won't bore people with, but why don't people get to you first? And the reason they don't get to them first for this rare disease is because it's hard for doctors on the front line to understand what it is, to notice the symptoms, and to refer quickly to the right people. So we found that more than half the country suffers from some form of lack of access, and 40% of the visits to specialists could actually be managed in the community setting, which is where most people choose to and would like to stay, with a trusted provider that they know. The way our platform works is super simple. Patients go see their primary care clinician. If there's some issue that's outside of their expertise, typically they get sent elsewhere. What we allow them to do is upload anything that's relevant and just ask a question. Wow. We're gonna figure out the right specialists. We have a panel across the country, and we'll get an opinion from that expert, and that expert's opinion will come back to the primary care clinician, and they'll have that information to follow up with the patient. And what we found is, half the time this means the patient doesn't have to travel, they don't have to go through unnecessary studies, tests, they get the right information, and then 80% of the time this improves the care plan. Wow. So this means that the care is better directed as a result of getting the opinion. So we're a tool to empower people that are closest to the patient and understand and have that direct relationship with the patient to be able to deliver better care. And we do that just by taking the expertise that sits across the country and putting it at their fingertips, at their disposal.
You know, what obstacles you're facing personally, maybe internally, maybe externally? What's on your mind?
We know no matter what we're doing, we have this big mission to democratize medical expertise. We're in New York City, it's competitive. We're always trying to get great people because that's how you scale this. There was a point at which I did everything, and then my co-founder Carlos and I have figured out ways to systematically fire ourselves from each job we can to get great people in the door, but that's hard. Obviously, shout out to you guys at SingleSprout for helping us. That's the highest leverage thing I think we can do, is to get great people in the door. And then I spend a lot of my time thinking about how do we grow our customer base. So not everybody in healthcare is doing things the right way, and we want to make sure that we're aligning ourselves with healthcare that's moving in the right direction. I call it being on the right side of history.
Yeah. Well, you guys are on the right side of history. I think you're doing some incredible work.
Thank you, man.
Clearly with technology, great people. When you've raised over $20 million, you've been named on Forbes and Cranes and all these great lists. You're definitely in the right direction. What aspirations, like where do you want to see Rubicon MD go, and maybe some data behind that?
We have helped to create and name this interaction e-consult. There were incredible thought leaders who were doing this in academic settings. We figured out how to commercialize it, and it was a thing before, and now it's a thing that people better understand. It's something that's just a part of the way medicine is delivered. People go to the doctor, they get their vitals. If you need to engage a specialist, you'll get an e-consult. And I think the world will move that way with or without Rubicon MD. I think we're enabling that. I think we're helping to accelerate that. And I think part of the exciting challenge is we want to be synonymous with that, but we're helping to enable that I call it a revolution, if you will. And I think in a world where we've moved past kind of just getting people insurance coverage, we have to think about how do you provide access to care for all of these people. You've got to find more efficient tools, and I think e-consults is a big piece of that, and that's where we're moving the world.
So how many doctors give me some stats, how many doctors use Rubicon?
Yeah, so we about 6,000, a little more, heading towards 7,000 primary clinicians use Rubicon MD across 36 states and been able to address care for millions of patients across the country.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Millions, thousands.
Yeah.
36 states is the goal, obviously the whole country.
Yeah, I mean there are almost 300,000 primary care clinicians and then a ton of extenders, almost that many physician extenders across the country. And we're trying to get out there, and we want this to be a tool that they feel, each and every one of them feels like they should have. So we're just getting started. Yeah, we've raised about $20 million to date, and it's allowed us to, from some incredible backers, it's allowed us to scale our impact. And we just want to keep getting this story out and getting people to use the platform. Yeah, man. Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate you guys giving us the opportunity to share our story. This is just fun.
Yeah.
I appreciate the coffee.
Thanks so much, Gil. Really appreciated it. I loved hearing your story, Rubicon's story. Where can people hear more?
Yeah, they can find us at rubiconmd.com. You can also find us on social media at Rubicon_MD.
Thanks, man.